Hey guys, Courtney Adams with Gather with Purpose podcast here. Thanks for joining me today. I hope you are ready to dig in, fill up, and get going. All right, so let's jump right in here. For today, my quote is by a man named John Dewey. Any education given by a group tends to socialize its members, but the quality and value of the socialization depends upon the habits and aims of the group. Hence, once more, the need of a measure for the worth of any given mode of social life. So you're probably wondering what in the heck we are going to talk about today and where I am going with that quote. Pretty deep, right? So before we dig in, we're going to kind of break apart that quote, and we're also going to get to the main point of today. But first, I want to remind you guys where you can find the podcast and me. So first, we have the Gather with Purpose podcast channel on YouTube. YouTube is free to subscribe to. You don't have to have a channel. You can just log in or you can just join through the app, honestly. And check it out. You can share, you can refer friends, which is always greatly appreciated. We are now also on Rumble, which is a wonderful app, and it's just under Gather with Purpose podcast. You can see all of our past and present podcasts there. I also have a website, which is CourtneyInAdams.com. And I'm also a national leader with a direct sales company called Mary and Martha, which is underneath Dayspring Corporation. And my site is www.mymaryandmartha.com/cadams. So you can go and check that out and see what we are about. In a world driven by culture, let's gather with purpose and focus on that which matters most. Join me each week for what's new, a different perspective, encouraging outreach, and what's real. This is not your everyday podcast. I will promise you this. I will show up to challenge you, encourage you, help you grow, and break free of culture. So let's gather with purpose. All right. So I read this quote by John Dewey, and it has to do with an education and socialization. So that's what we're going to talk about today. So this is kind of a touchy subject. A lot of people really don't like prying into this subject. So, it only makes sense for me to touch on it. Touchy subjects have no place here. I will pretty much talk about anything. So we are a homeschooling family. We have been a homeschooling family for 6 years now. And the number one question that my husband and I get as homeschooling parents is, how are your children socialized? And honestly, after 6 years, it is really hard to keep a very straight face and give a very calm response to that, quite honestly. Because one, I don't do well with ignorance, so to speak. I also don't do well with conforming to what culture says about a particular subject and then parroting to those that partake in said subject, if that makes sense. Do your own research. Be your own human. Be bold. Be authentically you. Be your own person. Stop parroting culture and the world. It will never get you anywhere, and the world will dump you so fast. They won't even notice that they ever had you, and they won't care. So anyways, that's an entirely different show and an entirely different rant, and I feel confident that it would make an amazing TED Talk. So maybe I will do a court talk one day. Anyways, so this quote really struck me, and the reason it was kind of on my mind, you guys ever notice that when there's something that you're pondering and thinking about because it has come up in conversation, or it has been a topic or a theme that has repeatedly been noted or on your social media feed or brought up, whatever the case may be. When you have a topic or a theme that is on your brain, you tend to notice or see quotes, anecdotes, scripture, phrases, ideas surrounding that particular theme more than you maybe ever have. And it's probably because we are heightened to that particular topic. And so things kind of jump out at us as we are pondering. So anyways, I was pondering the idea of sending children to public school for the main reason of socialization. Okay, this was a topic that had come up in conversation, and really it had come up in no less than a handful of conversations within a 30-day period. So God was obviously really wanting me to dive into the idea of this. And like I said, we get asked all the time, how are our children socialized if they are homeschooled? It's really hard for me to not laugh at that. I don't, because that is not kind or helpful, but it's really hard. So let's just break apart this quote for a little bit. Any education given by a group tends to socialize its members. All right, so that's pretty straightforward. So when we send our children to any type of schooling environment, they are going to start taking on the mannerisms and the tones and the cultural isms of that group, right? Like that's pretty self-explanatory. That's pretty obvious. They are going to start soaking in those around them, and they are going to essentially change who they are. Kids conform. They just do. And adults conform. But as adults, for the most part, there are obviously exceptions, and there are also exceptions with children. Conformity happens quicker and easier within children. And so when they hang out with a particular group of children, that group of children starts to act like one another. They can finish each other's sentences. They move, they talk, they use mannerisms that are very much the same. They all laugh at the same stuff. They all like the same things. Okay, so that part of it makes a lot of sense. The next part says, but the quality and the value of the socialization depends upon the habits and aims of the group. Okay, so let's break this apart. I am a big believer in quality over quantity, okay? And this kind of speaks that to me. So the quality and the value of the socialization. Have you ever thought about socialization being valuable? Probably after 2020, we all hold socialization higher on the valuable list of things that we need and prioritize in our lives. So quality and value of socialization depends upon the habits and aims of the group. Okay, let's just take one extreme to the next. Let's take the idea of gangs in hardened cities versus the idea of a group of children in a private school, okay? Your groups are going to look very different. The socialization is going to look very different. And it's because the quality and value is dependent upon the habits and aims of that group. Those in the gang, their habits and aims of that group is destruction, chaos, sinful behavior, lying, cheating, stealing, dishonesty, deceitfulness, manipulativeness, so on and so forth. You see where I'm going, okay? So the quality and value of that socialization is not going to be one that builds up and grows confidence within the people of that group, right? All right, so then we take the group that is in the private school that's probably a smaller group. They might not have been exposed as much. The quality and value of that socialization has a better chance of being one of greater quality and greater value. All right. More than likely, you're going to have less deceitfulness, less dishonesty, lying, cheating, stealing, manipulativeness, chaos, destruction, sinfulness. You're going to have less of all of that. All right. So the value and the quality of the socialization that one receives depends on the habits and aims of the group as a whole. Okay, we probably can see that as evidenced in different socialization groups that our children have been a part of during their life. I, as an adult now, looking back on the different groups that I was a part of in middle school and high school, can see very clearly that there were particular groups that wanted nothing good for anybody within the group. It was completely selfish. It was completely egotistical and arrogant and prideful and just destructive, right? I can also see socialization groups that I have been a part of that have been amazingly beautiful examples of what I can only imagine the kingdom of heaven can look like when all of us believers come together, right? So we have this diametrically opposed view and idea between the quality and value of socialization, 100% depending upon the habits and aims of the group, okay? This last part of this quote says, hence, once more, the need of a measure for the worth of any given mode of social life. All right. So what does that mean? Basically, make sure that where you are socializing produces a quality that lines up with your aim for your life, with who you want to be. All right. So what does this have to do with throwing children into public school for the sole factor of socializing? It has a lot to do with it. So we are a homeschool family. I will always advocate for homeschooling. I will tell you that my husband and I were public school raised, and honestly, I thoroughly enjoyed my public schooling education. I am now learning that I didn't actually learn a whole lot, and that there were a lot of missing holes, and that college was harder than I feel it should have been because of the missing holes. Do I blame my teachers? No, not at all. I will never blame teachers for anything that has to do with any schooling system. The teachers, I know for a fact, are 100% there for the children. They want to make a difference, and goodness gracious, they do. Y'all, I had so many amazing teachers in my life. I can still name them to this day. Do I blame the education system? 100%. We have administrators in charge of educators. We don't have educators in charge of educators. Therefore, there is a disconnect, and it trickles down all the way to the bottom. And I say all of that to say that this is a touchy subject. And some of y'all are not going to like what I have to say. Here's the deal. I am not here to please everybody, and it's okay to disagree and not like what somebody says and to just move on, right? So let's just remind us of all of that. And that goes with any episode and with any encounter you have with any human being. I disagree with a lot of people in life, and it's so much easier to just continue to scroll or move on. Offendedness is a choice. You can choose to be offended or you can choose to move on. It's completely up to you. So before we get going, that's my disclaimer. The idea of sending children to public school to be socialized, to me, is an interesting one. Our daughter spent 4 months in public school, and I thought that it was the best option for her. And I was completely appalled and shocked to learn that as kindergartners, they had very little time to spend with their peers. They had very little time to learn from their peers and soak in what it was like to be with people their age, to be with people different from them, to learn from people similar and dissimilar to them. I wanted that for my children so that they could then learn who they are and where they feel they fit in. There's nothing better than learning through trial and error. I wanted them to learn different cultures, different backgrounds, different socioeconomic statuses. I wanted them to learn all of that. But to do that, they have to have interaction and socialization with their peers. I learned that the first thing to go when a child is supposedly in trouble is recess. Recess is the only time of day that children in certain grades, because after a certain grade they lose recess, which is an entirely different topic. It's the only time of day that these children actually get to play out where their brains mentally and emotionally are. Children, for the first almost 10 years of their life, learn through doing, touching, imagining, reading. These are all ways that they intake the world, process it, and then push it back out. Well, if they don't have the opportunity to actually socialize through play, conversations, learning through mistakes, learning through how to handle people different than them, how to handle groups that are similar to them, how to learn where the quality and value of the socialization that they need is, they really are not having the opportunity to be socialized, and they're not going to grow in that way. And today we complain about these younger generations just spending all their time on their phones. What if they have no idea how to be a part of a group? And who can really blame them when for the past 18 years, they've been sent to a building where they have had no opportunity to socialize? They have been told when standing in line out in hallways to be quiet instead of talking to their friends and having the ability to hash out what's in their brains. They have been told to sit in chairs for 8 to 9 hours a day and not talk. They have been given no opportunity to burn off energy at recess or PE each day. And they are told to keep their thoughts to themselves when that thought isn't quite alongside what their peers or their teacher thinks or believes. We can't blame these children for constantly being on their devices when we have given them no socialization skills, none whatsoever. The idea of sending children to public school to be socialized is such a bigger disconnect than homeschoolers being socialized. And let me explain to you from, again, another personal story. We are homeschoolers. I have said in a previous episode that if we were to sign up and do all of the things at our disposal as homeschooled children, we would never sleep and we would still not be able to sign up for all of the activities. As homeschooled children, we have more at our disposal, more time, more flexibility, more opportunities to sign up for things that interest my children with children that are like-minded in their interests. I can also challenge my children in signing up for new things that they might or might not like, but once we sign up, we stick with it. They're going to meet people like them and people not like them. I can also take them to socialize with people higher up than their current peer status through galleries and events and gatherings and camps and all different kinds of things that allow them to rise to the occasion to learn from those above them. I can inundate their socialization with their peers and also people above them. I can also inundate their socialization with people below them so they can learn how to lead effectively for the future. As a homeschooler, I can bring the quality and value of their socialization 100% dependent upon the habits and aims of the group through what we choose to participate in and also what our co-op participates in, whether we like it or not. They have the opportunity to ask hard questions, to not be silenced in the hallway, to have recess whenever they need it. Because let's be real honest, I'm 36 years old and I can't sit in a chair for 8 to 9 hours without talking or moving. Neither can these children, and to expect such is completely unrealistic expectations that we are going to be let down every single time. We're setting them up for failure. We're setting us up for disappointment. But I can recognize that my child needs to do math facts on the trampoline, or while doing jumping jacks, or while running laps around whatever the case may be. I can recognize that my children has inundated themselves with people in a group that isn't exactly what I want for them in the long run. And we can have those life conversations, and we can talk about figuring out who we are in the midst of groups that we might not really know what to do in. In public school, it's very different. Parents don't get to see the groups that their children are socialized with, so they only get snippets of it when their child comes home and they're having to figure out and piece together what has gone on in the day. The child also hasn't been allowed to kind of dump out their brain before they get home, and they haven't had any time to play with their friends. Instead, they have had to sit in their seat and see their friends, and it's like a tease. They can't play with them. They can't interact with them. They have to be quiet in the hallways. Punishment is no recess or sitting by themselves at lunch or in the room. Whatever the case may be, they don't have the opportunity to see their friends during lunchtime because lunch is now done in the classroom instead of with other classes. There's all of these things that keep children from being socialized in a public school setting. It also brings into question, what do we want influencing our children? And we have to protect and guard the innocence of our child for as long as possible. I'm not saying wrap them in a bubble and keep them naive and out of harm's way. That's completely impossible in life, so please do not read into that or assume that's what I'm saying. But if we want our children to be mentally, emotionally ready for the world, guarding their innocence is a thing. They are not ready in second grade to be learning about the 72 different genders that don't exist and the different ways that intimacy can come into play in a relationship. That is not second grade material. Innocence is real. And a lot of times, the quality and value of the socialization, 100% dependent on the habits and aims of the group, is not that which you deem worthy or what you want for your child. Sending a child to public school solely based on socialization is going to backfire every single time. If you homeschool or are thinking about homeschooling, can I reassure you that I guarantee you there is a homeschooling community where you are at? There are options and opportunities available to you that will allow you to socialize your child in the manner which is mentally and emotionally stable and prepared for their age at that moment. Why are we trying to rush the innocence out of our child with socialization and dumping them into a culture that adults can't even handle? We are setting them up for failure and complete and utter disaster. So, before we go, I will read it again. Any education given by a group tends to socialize its members. Wouldn't you like to have some say over that? Or at least have an idea as to what your child is picking so you can have good conversations about it, so you can help them when the need arises? This allows for amazing conversation between you and your child. But the quality and the value of the socialization depends upon the habits and aims of the group. Not all groups are created equal, folks. Hence, once more, the need of a measure for the worth of any given mode of social life. Be picky. Be particular. Guard the innocence of your child. And remember that they are only children for so long, and we only have them for so long. It is okay to fight for them, and we must fight for them. Thank you for joining us today. I hope you dug in, filled yourself up, and are ready to get going. Nothing gets done sitting around waiting for others to do it. So let's be the ones that do it. Get it done and do so boldly and authentically. The world needs more of that. Swim upstream in a waterfall culture. To find us, you can do so on YouTube with our Gather with Purpose podcast channel right here. You can also find me on my website, CourtneyNAdams.com. You can subscribe for free. I don't do a whole lot with it, so you won't be spammed. I will, at the end of each week, try and share that week's podcast links. I am also on Rumble, Gather with Purpose podcast channel, exactly as it sounds. On Rumble, you can find the channel there with the podcasts. Also, I am a national leader with Mary and Martha, mymaryandmartha.com/C Adams. You can go and check that out, see what we're all about. I would love to share the company with you. Thank you for tuning in today. I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful day, and hopefully this gave you something to chew on instead of something to chew me out about. Have a good one.